Wild on the back end of a back-to-back. The physical matchup here in St. Louis. Centering pass. Haula scores! First of the year for Eric Haula. And Minnesota has tied it. And for just the second time this year, the Wild will be heading into overtime. Blues are on the attack, 2-on-2. Back is the trailer to the middle. Backus with just a perfect shot off the pipe.
I can't do it.
Another Wild Wednesday back here at Bennett's Chop and Rail House. Scott Schweitz along with Sarah Sheely, Tony Dean, and our special guest of the week, Chad Graff. Thank you, Chad, for joining us.
Thank you, special guest. I feel honored.
We're pretty excited to have you here. You're special.
Just a regular guest, but
Tony's a regular guest.
Not declared, not short bus special. I mean, just
right.
Yeah. Like honored guest.
Yes, honored guest.
Distinguished.
I think special guest fits because not only do you like live and die, cover this team, travel, do all of that, but I don't think that we get enough of you. I think we get a ton of Russo, but we don't get enough of Chad Graff. Right?
I don't know who this Russo you speak of.
I only know Chad Graff.
No,
that's all I read.
We love Russo. Don't do that.
I'm
right?
an East of the River guy, so I'm a Pioneer Press person, so I don't know this Star Trib thing.
Neither do I.
Well played.
What is that you
the
speak
competitors.
of?
Yeah.
I won't mention another newspaper in town.
Yes.
No.
Shouldn't be.
No doubt. I think in the lead up to today, one of the overwhelming things that I had people approach me on Twitter and ask about, they want to know who Chad Graff is, right? So that they 100% they read your stuff, they follow you on Twitter, they've seen you on TV, they've seen you on 105 The Ticket, but they want to know who is Chad Graff.
I appreciate that. I'm not sure if they really want to know who Chad Graff is. I'm not that interesting. But I've done this job for 2.5 years now. Came here from the Northeast. And so far, so good. I like Minnesota, like covering the team, like where I work, and things are going pretty well.
So let me ask you something. If you're from the East Coast, I'm going right in to the heart
fire
right
away.
now.
Uh-oh.
Hockey team, who's yours?
I grew up watching the Bruins. And if you want it worse, I really grew up watching the Stars. I lived in Dallas from 95 to 2000.
That's
so I watched Daryl Sador play on the Stars. I watched Mike Modano play on the Stars. I got something to say about him
later, too.
Well,
we'll get into that later.
Jeez. So I went from the Stars to the Bruins to, and a ton of college hockey. College hockey, I've learned it's not, in Minnesota it's bigger than anywhere. Mm-hmm. But it's still pretty big in the East. And because the schools are so close.
Well, especially the Boston area.
Right. You can, in the Hockey East up until Notre Dame joined, you could pretty much drive to any game and just make a quick trip of it. It wasn't like you had to stay in a hotel. So I went to games in Lowell and BU and BC and UMass and all that following college hockey, and eventually went to the University of New Hampshire where I covered the hockey team.
Funny thing is you don't have a real deep East Coast accent until you said college hockey. That sounded like Callahan from the Miracle. We're going to play college hockey. Isn't it obvious for the girls?
My language is so screwed up that I go in the South and everybody says I talk like I'm from the East, and in the East everybody says I'm from the South because I was born in California, spent time there, then to Dallas. My dad's from the Midwest. 10 through 21 years old in the Northeast, so I'm just a mutt of too many different accents.
You're all over the place.
Exactly.
Well, I'm here, and then I go back to Canada. Everybody says I sound like a Yank, and then here everybody says I sound like a Canadian. So you never know. Plus, when you get a couple drinks and you start talking hockey, I feel like your real native language really starts to come out. So I get it.
The passion. I think they call that the passion, or
we have yet to get Sarah to break out the A yet. I don't think we've got to that. How many Chardonnays is it going to take to get you to say A?
The draft show. The draft show, we did a pretty good job.
I think that there was some A, and there was a lot of Chardonnays. So.
Yes,
true.
Yes,
that's the key.
So put those two things
Fireball
together.
Too, maybe.
Yeah.
the social lubricant. Yeah. And our draft show was 2 hours.
It was 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was.
How much did you guys have to talk about the draft? I hardly had that much to talk about the draft.
Well, we did it during the draft, so we did the whole first round.
Gotcha, okay.
But we all,
we went through the wild pick, and then after that I was like, you guys. I've had too much Chardonnay.
Sure.
I can't be talking like on something that's recorded and going to be played back to me.
But we also we talked about the Wild off season. You know, we kind of talked about
into free agency.
Yeah, and
there was contract.
There was adversity.
There was a bunch, I guess. Now looking back on it,
Backstrom's contract.
Yeah.
What happened with Vanek? Like what Vanek's going to show up?
Cook buyout. There was plenty going on.
Granlund was owed a deal. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was kind of in doubt. And then also we didn't know if we'd be back this year either, so it was like kind of our last opportunity,
like a swan song,
to sell the Wild Wednesday to the Bennett family and to Alive and Social.
Yeah,
and so that's what's so remarkable about being here.
I was going to say this is Chad's first time to Bennett's, and he hasn't eaten anything yet.
We'll get him some dinner.
We were going to get him some dinner, and I think you're going to be surprised at the. Kind of the unassuming person kind of walking into Bennett's like, not really sure, but
that
I'll
St.
tell
Paul
you what,
characteristic, food.
It is a diamond in the rough as far as its food, its personality,
its service,
the service, the shuttle to the game, and just when you get Joe in here, I mean, Joe is kind of all of that rolled into one rotund package. Love you, Joe. Love you, rotund.
We do love you, Joe.
And I think what you'll being a transplant to Minnesota, and now that hockey's in St. Paul, and it's
which
on
I know
West
how
7th,
that is, so welcome.
St. Paul is St. Small, and really like the whole state goes that way. So it's a lot about the relationships that you build. It's a lot about who you know and who knows you,
right.
And having like these kind of ambassadors to let you into these like members only sort of like clubs and stuff like that. And so what Bennett's is Bennett's is a St. Paul, like best kept secret type of place where Joe is a UMD.
Well, Joe's a transplant. I mean, Joe's from Duluth.
He's a live and die like Bulldogs fan, and he's also anything that takes place at the Excel Center. Joe wants you to come in here, have dinner, and then he wants to drive you there in his shuttle. He wants you to come back afterwards, and he wants to create the experience and the night for you. And we're a little bit farther down West 7th away from the Excel, so you kind of you don't have to deal with the kids.
It's true St. Paul, I feel like. So
yeah.
It is not
100%.
Like,
it's true St. Paul. It's not tourism St. Paul. It's not like Grand Avenue where you get like the suburb kids to come in there.
Yeah, it's true St. Paul.
And I think St. Paul people, like, that's what we seek out. Like we want to keep St. Paul rather than have it be Minneapolis, because you can just go over there. And
that's nothing, like, you know, we're from the west side.
Careful, you struck a nerve.
You know, we are Minneapolis people on this side of the table. So, I mean, we go both ways.
I will say one more thing about, and I don't think I've touched on this when we talk about Bennett's, but when I worked here, like, the strangest thing about it is you never knew who was going to come in the door. I mean, that was one of the things that I really did enjoy about it. I mean, I'd be serving drinks to Bob Paradise, former North Star. And then another time I was up here with my buddies, and Brett Hull is sitting at the table right over there having dinner. I mean, because Brett knows Joe. And so Brett Hull's just sitting there, and I'm like, should I get up and say something, Brett Hull, or what should I do? Should I be that guy? And I didn't. I held off. And
what would you have said?
I don't know. That's why I held off, because I kind of froze. I got a little nervous.
It was
I loved your mullet.
Yeah.
And then just run away.
I loved you when you played for the Blues. High five, chest bump. What do we do?
It had flow.
But he got up and left, and then Joe came over. He's like, I was with a couple buddies. Like, hey, thanks a lot for not being like those guys that totally like disturbed him, because he likes to come in here and have dinner and not be bothered. Yeah. And so he's like, I appreciate you not like just mauling the guy and be like, I don't want to talk to you about nothing.
Hey man, I'm just gonna stare at you.
Yeah. So that's like really the kind of place this is you don't know what you're gonna get anytime you walk in. Who knows who's gonna be here? So I mean, it is a great place. Come check it out. Ride the shuttle to the game. We can't say enough about it.
We're happy to have it as our home on Wednesday nights, and we're happy to have you here for that too this Wednesday. So you come from the East Coast. What's it like writing for a team that you're not a fan of? Do you find that after 2.5 years, maybe you start to grow a little bit more fond of them, maybe being a little bit more... We're taking a picture. Nobody could multitask there.
Wow,
Sorry.
that was amazing. Well, I think if you talk, like you move your mouth and it looks weird, like.
So do you find yourself growing a little bit more towards the Wild, or like how does that work?
Not really. I mean, I think it's important not to really be a fan of the team you cover just because there are times, including right now a little bit. Like today I did a story on Jason Pominville's struggles, and I'm sure we'll touch on that later, but 0 goals through 11 games. I know it's a hot-button issue, but I think it's important to, make sure that you're not a fan so that you can write about issues like that. And, the last 2 seasons, I think it's especially been apparent when, come mid-January, the team is in shambles and continues to lose. And to be able to look at it objectively and to sort of look at what they need to do, but also talk to them and think what, hear from them what they think they need to do.
It's got to be a lot tougher watching, like, the first half of last season when we were not good, and you have to watch every single game. For me, I'm a huge fan, so I still enjoy that. That's got to be a little bit tougher when they're not playing as well.
I hear you, because the one team and the one sport that I'm really a fan of, and I grew up in the East, and the Patriots a little bit and the Red Sox a little bit, but the one that,
Ouch.
I know, but that's sort of semi-fanship. The one that I really grew up with is, believe it or not, Nebraska college football.
I was going to ask you about that. So I saw that when I already told you this, that I stalked you on the internet today, and I saw that you're a Cornhuskers fan.
Yeah, it makes very little sense. It's because my dad's side of the family is from there. I was the first one not to go there. Everybody grew up in Omaha.
Okay,
you
I
go
gotcha.
to Lincoln. So that's the only one that I'm really a fan of, and now I see what you're saying where I'm having to sit through all these terrible Nebraska football games.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
They are pretty – I mean, they beat the Gophers, thankfully, but other than that was the high of the season.
Let's just take a deep breath here, okay?
Wait until they get blown out this weekend. But
last week I admitted that my family's Notre Dame fans. I got hammered.
Oh, boy.
Kendall,
Yeah.
Sarah just wouldn't
fair.
talk to me. I
That's
got
fair.
the finger.
That is
the
fair, right?
finger doesn't translate to a podcast, but it was out. It was a lot.
I don't know if I can blame them for that.
I think
Okay.
it's also when I started swearing.
I can tell this. I want my nephew goes to Notre Dame, so I'm going to defend Tony a little bit. I went out last year and actually caught not a football game, but I went to a hockey game and actually caught Notre Dame playing Boston College. So I got to see
Lucia
Good
and
matchup.
Yeah,
Tuck.
I got to see
Yeah.
Lucia and Tuck and Gilmore.
Gilmore.
And so Alex Tuck, very impressed of how Alex Tuck looked on the ice. I liked Gilmore. Obviously, we know Lucia because he's a hometown kid, but it was really unique to see those 3 prospects play in a game, and Boston ended up winning. So it was tough, obviously, for my nephew and all of his buddies and whatever to see the loss, but in great atmosphere. I mean, for a place that isn't known for their hockey until more recently, I mean, they've really turned it on as far as like their hockey atmosphere.
I know it's a Wild podcast, but let me ask you guys: are you Gophers fans, or what do you think of another one last Lucia versus Lucia matchup this weekend?
Go for hockey. I think Mario Lucia is going to destroy that team, man. They're skilled, but they got tiny skilled forwards. The defense is kind of a shamble, and even dating back to last year, their defense was tough. Mike Riley's very offensive, very good. Brady Shea, another guy that's like a two-way guy. They lacked kind of the defensive defenseman, and they still do. They brought in wild draft pick Nick Seeler from Omaha, Nebraska, and then all of a sudden he's playing like top pairing minutes, and you're like, oh no, it's gonna be a down year. It's gonna be, and I love Coach Lucia. I'm a huge Gopher hockey fan. I love the only one I don't do is Gopher football, which is jerky. But they just
Did you watch? Okay, I know we don't want to talk about this, but did anybody watch that game on Saturday?
The Michigan game?
No.
None of you guys watched it.
No.
I was in the press box in St. Louis because the Wild were playing that night.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
And so Rachel
I was
Blount
watching
was
both.
covering for the Star Tribune. So
Rachel does
the
a
paper
great
I've never
job.
heard of, what it was I meant to say.
Yeah.
And so I see on Twitter, Gophers have a miraculous catch in the end zone. They're going to win this game. And I turned to her, I'm like, you're not going to believe this. I know there's a Wild game going on, but our stories are going to get buried. The Gophers are about to beat Michigan.
No,
and all
it
of a sudden,
was
I hit refresh on
unbelievable.
my tweets again, and never mind. Stopped at the one. Here we go.
It was unbelievable. They have this miraculous comeback. Then to keep the drive going, there was like a 4th down, and then it was just this unbelievable drive and this crazy touchdown. And then you see the replay, and you're like, oh, I think that he's down at the 1, but you have 4 plays. There was like 19 seconds left. There's plenty of time,
What could
and
go
you're just
wrong?
down by a field goal. So just kick a field goal, you tie it up, and it goes into overtime. And then they do nothing.
They
and
wound the clock.
like 12
Yeah.
seconds. It was the worst clock management I've ever seen.
I listened to Kendall and Gorg, and what they said is normally on a first down it'll stop. They challenged the play. Once they came out of that, the clock was ticking. Nobody on the Gopher sideline alerted Mitch Leidner.
It was
so
horrible.
they basically had the 1 or 2
It was
plays.
just, and then your
Well,
heart
then they
just
ran a
felt
play
for the
where they're
coaching
motioning
staff.
a guy.
yeah, the rollout. Yeah.
Exactly, and then your heart just felt for the coaching staff, because they were doing it for Jerry, and that's why they didn't kick the field goal because they really felt they had the momentum, and it sucked. So then I watched that, and I just feel like deflated as a person, because I was so high, and then I was so low, and then I switched back to the Wild game. And then we lose in overtime like 3 minutes later, and I was like,
God,
I'm going to bed.
Minnesota deserved a win after that week with Flip and Kill and Hunter retiring. And
I know. It
wasn't to be, I guess.
It wasn't, but it was. I mean, I guess I'm being pretty selfish. It was a pretty depressing, 45 minutes of my life personally. But
Let me. I want to ask specifically about St. Louis. So I know that you probably come into contact with their players, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so, St. Paul, Minnesota being everybody knows everybody. I worked with the best friend of Backus, right?
Yeah.
And there was this thing where TJ Oshie and Backus always get up for Minnesota games because they're like the Minnesotans that haven't come home. So when David Backus beats the Wild in overtime, he had to feel a certain way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. His family was there. They had all come down. His daughter was there. I mean, it was such a big game for him because they were playing Minnesota, and he'll openly admit it. And I don't think it's a consequence or a coincidence that he went the first 10 games of the season with 0 goals, plays the Wild, and he gets 2 goals in that game.
Yeah.
It was a tough start to the season for him, and then Minnesota comes to town, and next thing you know, it's like it's a normal season.
Especially they got injuries there, and they're in trouble. I mean, their injuries are serious injuries. They're missing Tarasenko.
Well, when you lose someone like Tarasenko,
He was back last night, but I was watching that game against the Kings, and he had a breakaway and didn't finish. He just didn't seem to have that same burst. So I'm sure he'll be okay long term. But that, at least when the Wild played them, the Blues were missing 4 key players. They're missing Schwartz,
Stasny.
I mean, they were missing some guys. Shattenkirk, I think, too.
Shattenkirk was out, and Stasny's out with that foot injury, isn't he?
Right, and he'll be out more long term.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was a big opportunity for the Wild, but they were happy. I mean, second of a back-to-back after beating Chicago. To get 3 of 4 in a back-to-back with 1 on the road against Chicago and St. Louis,
especially such a tough
not that
divisional,
bad.
But how about this? I mean, I know we want to say, okay, 3 of 4, but the first goal Backus had. I mean, I understand we're getting more and more into sports with the reviews and all this stuff. How does 4 officials they miss a puck that bounces outside of the glass and bounces back in and then bounces to Backus and then he gets a softie? I mean, it shouldn't have been a goal. It should have been a 2-minute minor for delay a game.
It should have been a penalty on Coyle. And I was 9 floors up at the very top of Scott Trade Center watching, and that happens. I kind of look away, just assuming the whistle's coming, looking down to, I don't know, either check Twitter, whatever nonsense I'm doing during the game. And then I look back, and it's still going on. I said to Rachel, who was next to me, I could have sworn that was headed out of play, was it not? And, of course, we go back on replay and see it definitely was out of play. But just a tough break, and so there was that. But at the same time, Dubnyk needs to stop that puck.
That's a softie. Absolutely,
there's no way around that.
But I mean, before we get into Dubnyk's trials and tribulations so far this season, do you think that could be a precursor to further coaches' challenges going forward? I mean, because stuff like that, I mean, that's what challenges are from the NFL. To now we see it in MLB. I was at the Timberwolves opener, and I mean that was a disaster because they lost because of poor officiating and replays. I mean,
And also because they went to a funeral before the game. That was like such an emotional roller coaster.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. Like, do you think that replays in hockey, now they're limited to a very small scope?
Two circumstances.
Yep. Offsides and
goalie interference.
Yep. So do you think you see an expansion going forward?
I don't necessarily. I think that the league wants to see how this works. I think they want to see if this takes up too much time or not. I think they want to see what coaches and GMs think of it, and that's one of the things that they'll talk about on November 10th. All the GMs get together for the first GMs meeting of the year in Toronto. And among that, not just about expanding it, but one of the other things they're talking about is coaches using a challenge as a way to sort of take a really long time out. If you see in the third period, exactly, that the other team is just coming at you, rather than taking a timeout, which only lasts a fixed amount of time, why not challenge a random play? Even if you know it's not going to get reversed, it's going to cost your timeout, but you're going to get more time. So that's the other thing that I think will be interesting to see what GMs decide of that on
What if it's a goal?
10th.
I mean, if it's something that leads to a goal, I mean, except parameters around it, that something like that led to a goal, whether or not it's a softie.
Right.
But had that been called, that play would not have gone on. I mean, you see it sometimes where they'll go back and, somebody scores and play continues, and then they review, oh, that was actually a goal, and then they reverse time back into the time when the goal happened.
I think right now it's so rare that it's not even on like the GM's scope that, if we miss 2 a season across the entire league, it's not a big deal. If it becomes...
Definitely not if it's the Wild. I mean, if it's the Wild, nobody gives a shit.
And then forget about it.
Oh, God, flyover state.
It's
coming.
So,
it's coming.
And I've been trying to, bide my time, but I wonder if this is something that you notice, right? So, you come into contact
Actually, this is a good idea, being non-biased.
Yeah. And you come into contact with teams in there building the entire league, and nobody sees it up close like you do, being a beat writer. I've just been fascinated how little the Minnesota Wild draws penalties, how little a play like that Backus goal, where it's obviously out of play, they miss it. They don't review it. Nobody, Yo doesn't get to call the ref over there and garner the same sort of attention, respect, clout, whatever you want to call it. Have you noticed that, a guy like Parise, who is considered a blue-collar, lunch-pail superstar, never gets calls? I mean, he never gets calls.
I think he is the big one. On the whole, I don't think it's a huge issue, but Parise seems to get cross-checked more than any other play.
And maybe
almost every
Granlund
play is getting cross-checked.
On the numbers.
And maybe Granlund. Granlund, he's considered soft, or he's considered maybe he needs to toughen himself up or whatever. But he gets destroyed by guys that specifically target him for physical play, and then there's never any repercussions with the officials. The Bufflin, he body slammed him halfway up the glass, and then it's just it just magically didn't happen.
For whatever reason, it does seem like there are certain players that are not above the law, but just always seem to get away with Bufflin, Ryan Kessler. I mean, there are just certain players that can have certain hits, and it's almost like
Pronger when he played.
Right. I mean, it just is the way it is, I guess. But on the whole, I don't think Minnesota gets jobbed as much as it can come across, because we go to a lot of other places and they think the same thing.
Right.
Good.
And the other side of it, good.
Good. And the reason I say good is just because the Avalanche fans, after their team got sent packing, right?
Which year?
Their whole, no doubt, and good for them. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Their whole contention was that Minnesota's like a crybaby fan base, and
well,
so,
no offense, you are kind of a crybaby about it.
Okay. Well, and I accept that. I
wasn't meaning that to be aggressive.
No.
I'm just saying, there's certain people that think it's the flyover state and whatever, and others where I just think that maybe it is kind of something that happens everywhere. But
I share.
And you're
it.
kind of in the middle.
No, I share it because
he's in between us.
Because when I go to games,
he's a bet hedger.
But when I'm at games and I see
season ticket holder bet hedger, he's always got to be positive because he's invested already. He's over invested.
Not for everything, because when I'm gonna hear it when I say this, but my seats are fairly close to the ice.
Fairly close.
There it is. So I can
Lord
see.
Schweitz seats are fairly close to the ice.
Oh my God! Who the hell
cares?
So, but I can see things very closely. And so I see cross-checks on the numbers, and I see absolute, just egregious plays that should be called all the time.
Egregious.
All the time.
Spelling word of the day.
It's a legal word. Legal word. Write it down.
Spell that. Spell that.
But point is, they're not getting called, and I see the players talking to the refs, and the refs are so dismissive. They're like,
man.
"Don't even come to me. Like you are nothing. Get away from me." Like, and you just saw him get just floored by a cross check. And I mean, Parisi is very diplomatic as far as how he behaves and how he carries himself. That's how he is, who he is. But if I would have gotten cross-checked like 6 times and put into the net,
Taking your shirt over your head.
I honest to God, I mean, I
Losing
said this
my
before.
mind.
I would have put the butt of the hockey stick and I would have knocked all the teeth out of the person
Yeah.
that just did it to me, and it would have been it. I'd been like,
I'm touching your face. 100%. I'm going to touch your face.
It is happening, and I'm going to go to the box because I'm going to lose my mind and I'm going to destroy you.
And I think that's the amazing thing about a guy like Jason Zucker. Look back to his goal in St. Louis. He's getting harassed behind the net.
Gunnarsson.
I mean, did he
Gunnarsson.
have to pay for that ride? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Did Gunnarsson buy him dinner because he completely molested him? It was unbelievable.
And that was after Zucker got thrown down by Packus behind the net.
It was just magic that nobody sees it happening. It's like, were they invisible? Like, how did
The ref was
puck-
right behind him.
Yes.
Right, you saw the rep in the screen.
yeah.
I mean, he was right there. And I mean, LaBanda did a good job. Like, I don't know, was LaBanda or Greenlay? Like, is he going to go by the bench and be like, "That's right,
Yeah.
I just scored. Did you see that? Like, take that."
Well, and it was
Now you buy me
perfect in
dinner.
that he got right up, comes on side, gathers the puck from Suter, scores right. I mean, it was just it was so impressive what he did, and he's been. Not to
Unbelievable.
completely change gears, but he's
No, he
been
has been.
arguably the Wild's best player so far. Maybe not best player. Suter's been very good. There are some players who've been very good.
Miko playing out of his mind.
Miko's
Best hockey
probably
he's
been
ever
the best
played. He's
player on the Wild
phenomenal.
so far, but Zucker's not far behind.
But Zucker showed flashes over the years
Right.
that he can be that player. I mean, somebody tweeted in. I think it might have been our PGA buddy out.
It was.
Yeah.
It was our PGA. We're gonna go golfing with him.
Yeah,
Chad.
but-
Who
and,
is this PGA buddy?
We got to.
He's,
I totally
He's a
am
tour
gonna-
pro, and he's out at
Eagle Valley.
Eagle Valley.
Eagle Valley. So he says at Schweitz, at Minnesota Wild, can Zucker develop into the team's all-star goal scorer that they need?
What's his name? I totally am just going to.
Josh Wendell.
Sorry,
Wendell.
Josh. Sorry, Josh.
I mean, just not to jump right in if that wasn't for me, but to answer the question, I think that he definitely can. I think superstar, a lot of people try to put that label in, and to me, superstar is like Stamkos, Crosby, McDavid level, but Jason Zucker can very well be an all-star guy who scores 30 goals, I would say, consistently.
Well, that's what he was on pace for last year,
Right,
for
and
sure, before
that's
his injury.
the amazing
You know,
thing was before the injury, he was on pace for 31, 32 goals or something like that. So if he can stay healthy, and that is going to be an issue because he plays. I mean, he almost plays like Parisi with how in your face he is, and he'll take the cross checks and he'll take a hit to make a play. But he absolutely. I mean, he's just so skilled with the puck.
Great.
He's got such
He's
a
such
good
a great
shot.
skater.
And his
And he's
hands.
such a good skater.
His hands are. I mean, I would say he tries to play blue collar like Parisi, but he has much better offensive scoring prowess than Parisi does.
And I
Parisi scores dirty goals a lot of times. I mean, he doesn't score like the pretty, backhand goals that
that's
Zucker
not,
can.
he also scores some beautiful goals, though.
He can,
I mean,
but I think you could classify him as more of a blue collar scorer than a finesse scorer.
I think beyond that, I think we're missing the overall point that Jason Zucker has been a sponge, and he's been a sponge. Not only has he picked up Parise traits, where he goes out there, he works his ass off, he draws more penalties than anybody else.
Well, not Carter. Not Carter.
Yeah, he does. He's leading the team in penalties drawn right now. You can look at it. You can.
Zucker, actually, that's true.
Yes, I know
Yeah,
it's true.
That
That's
is
why-
true.
That's
All right,
why.
all right.
That is a
and
true statement.
Beyond that, what I think is amazing is that this is a kid that when he comes up, they want to humble him, right? And there's this narrative that I'll use narrative for
But
my
is it-
first time.
But is it tired?
It's flawed. It's a flawed.
Is it a tired
It's not a
narrative?
tired
No.
narrative. For those, hold on, I'm going to take this opportunity to say, for those of you at home, we missed it last show because we went so damn long, but
Yeah.
there is a drinking game at home when Tony Dean is on the show that anytime Tony Dean uses one of his many buzzwords,
I have a lot of buzzwords.
You go ahead and take yourself a sip of whatever cold beverage you have in front of you.
I kind of want to play. Fill me in. What are some of these buzzwords?
Chad, he said narrative, so take a drink.
Right, so
tired
drink here.
Tired
right.
narrative.
So currently we're drinking Summit because we're in St. Paul. That's what we drink. We drink Summit.
Drink local.
I think one of them's Genius Moment.
Yo knows best.
Yo knows best.
Yo
is the
knows
biggest
best.
one.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Yes. Yo knows best.
But by the way, those of you playing at home will probably have a nice buzz already at this point.
Yeah.
Yo knows best is where he'll come out and talk about how much efforting Stefan Veyu did. But then he'll.
By the way, for those of you at home, Chad just outwardly laughed.
Yes. or then he needs to knock Jason Zucker down a peg. So being here in Minnesota and you see Jason Zucker play for Denver University, this is a kid I was extremely excited about because his skating, his aggressiveness with the puck, and the way that he handles, he creates these moments that we hadn't seen in the Excel Center since Marion Gaborik. And when you see Jason Zucker get any sort of space at all, the crowd rises on their feet. You have the excitement that you didn't have with Jacques Lemaire trap hockey. You don't have it with a grinded out dump and chase sort of style. And so I read an article and I'm like, Jason Zucker needs to be top 6 and he needs to play. But the tired narrative of it was that
Drink.
I'll drink as well. No doubt.
Oh,
spill.
Party foul.
The tired narrative of it is he'll never be a two-way forward. He'll never play enough defense to garner a top 6 role, and I think that's been completely blown out of the water, especially if you look at his impact on Mikko Koivu, how well he fits in with Nino Niederreiter.
That line is unbelievable.
That line is extremely balanced, and I'm sure you obviously see it in practice and far more than the casual fan or even the super fan can, just because of your access. But it just has evolved in those three players and their attributes that they have fit so well together, and I think they've revitalized Mikko Koivu.
They definitely have. It's been everything and more that the Wild hoped for. It's been one of the best lines, statistically speaking, across the entire league. And a lot of people have asked recently about what the Wild can do to get sort of the Granlund, Parise, Pominville line going. And some of the suggestions have been maybe you put Zucker there, maybe you put Niederreiter there, switch up something to get it going.
And it's almost bad because you can't break. You can't touch
line
it.
has been so good that you don't even want to get near
no
it.
Way.
So how about this? So we'll jump right into the Pominville bit, and I'm buying into the fact that we need to shake something up. You can't just keep doing what you're doing because that in essence is the definition of insanity.
When you say we, you've invited yourself into the decision-making process.
Right. I am.
And that's
it's
flawed
I sit so
in the
close to the
narrative
ice.
of it
It's him and Mike.
because it's Yo knows best.
He's tapping him on the shoulder.
What Yo knows to do
You just watched the game on
is
Thursday. I'm
to
going to be right in
avoid.
there.
He's going to avoid any sort of confrontation with Pominville. He's not going to take him off the top power play. He's not going to take him off the line with Granlund and Parise.
But
it's
with
not
injuries
happening.
now, how do you move him? Let's hear what Chad has to say. I mean, with the injuries.
If Graffs were coming back, and
Absolutely.
obviously the news came out recently that he underwent sports hernia surgery, he's going to miss probably around 6 weeks.
Which they kept really hush-hush, too. I
Right.
mean, I didn't even know it was as bad as it was until suddenly it was, he had surgery, he's out 6 weeks.
I think he was skating, though.
And it wasn't, right. It was,
Yeah, it
it
got
was he's coming
aggravated.
back, and then it just got aggravated to the point where it was, all right, we just got to
Yeah.
shut you down and go into the knife. But, I mean, go back to October 8th, the season opener. Graffs at center. Charlie Coyle's not playing center. And the hope was sort of that if things happen the way that they have and the first line struggles, and it's hard to even call them the first line at this point with Koivu's line playing so well, but if Granlund's line struggles, then you can always flip Pominville and Coyle, and you've got a natural change that can spark things. And
I'd love to see Pominville and Vanek, back together.
It's amazing. It's been 2.5 years, and those two have never played together since their Buffalo days.
But
could you still do that?
The defense, though, man, they don't play any defense. I mean, Pominville's not going to check anybody. His defense is stick checks.
Let me say this: if Graffs were healthy
Yeah.
and Charlie Coyle's on the right wing, would you consider flipping Coyle and Pominville?
100% I would. But I think beyond this, the Backstrom money to have him on the roster to be missing that roster spot you lose a guy like Chris Stewart. Maybe that's a reason why Brodziak's not here, although Brodziak took a lot less money to go to St. Louis, so I think that was kind of
he wasn't coming back.
He was a little feisty the other night.
He wasn't coming back.
But
He got paid his last contract, and the Wild are like, not again.
The problem that's compounded is
thank
that
you.
this team, even dating back to last year, has been missing a top 6, top 9 center to slot in between Koivu and Granlund, right? So, like, the running argument is Koivu a top-line center? Is he a third-line center? Is he whatever? But lost in that is that Granlund hasn't produced to the level of his hype, and so you're missing a center. Even Charlie Coyle, and we talked about it last week, Charlie Coyle works his ass off, and he is a very complimentary player, and he's a 200-foot player, but I don't necessarily believe that he's a center in the NHL. I think that he's able to play both positions, and so you're missing a center anyways. Graffs was an awesome kid to wonder about coming into the season, but we haven't seen enough from him. I mean, he had a
seen a period
which is really
from him, basically,
unfortunate.
a period and a half.
Yes, man.
It's really unfortunate.
And he buzzed around and he was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, he crashed the net.
In training camp, he was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, he earned his spot, and that's why the Wild were so excited, was that finally Coyle didn't have to play center. Finally, they had somebody who could play there. He was going to play on the PK. I mean, they had big expectations and, truthfully, big hopes for him more than expectations, just because he's such a young kid. And it just a really unfortunate situation for him to.
And then there's still time. I mean, he's
Right.
only out. He's
Absolutely.
only for 4 to 6 weeks. We're talking about
Back by-
He's back by Christmas, maybe.
I mean, so you got a lot of season left to get him back in the mix. But what precludes them from still making that move with Coyle and Pominville, even with Haula at the center? I mean, Haula's shown that he can play defense very well, and he has in the past. So, I mean,
when Haula is on his game and playing well, like St. Louis and some other games, then he definitely very well could be that guy as a third-line center. But when he's not playing well, he's even below that. I mean, he's even below a fourth-line guy. And there's just not enough consistency with Howell where he's that third-line guy every night. Kind of like Jordan Schrader is right now, where when Jordan Schrader's playing well, he can add a lot to this team. He can be a third-line guy, but
He looks like
the first 2 games of the season, he just hasn't been that guy yet.
You know what's interesting about Jordan Schrader and Eric Haula? When they're playing at the top of their games, they look like first-round draft picks, superstars, like game-changing players. But when other teams use physicality or whenever they just can't get their game going, they look completely inept. I mean, and that's why Jordan Schrader flunks out as a prospect in Vancouver and has to sign here on a 2-way deal. That's why
Schrader didn't make the team out of camp.
Yeah, and that's why Eric Haula went from the best player on this top draft pick loaded Gopher team to the best player in Iowa to a guy that was a game changer in that Colorado series that made Nathan McKinnon look very average.
That was his best play of his career so
absolutely.
far.
And then now Yo, he's perpetually in Yo's doghouse. He got a goal, so he scored, right? He scored, but that was gift wrapped. That was a Vanek gift wrap, right? And so
mind you, you're praising Vanek right now. I just want you to know that.
No, I was a Vanek. Okay? I was a Vanek defender all last season, and the reason I defended Vanek is that although he didn't have the goals, he created offense, and that's why I'm so hard on Pominville.
Yeah,
because
but he also had no goals in the whole month of October last year.
But Vanek. He slowed down and he created offense. Whereas Pominville, whenever I get attacked for being harsh towards Pominville, they say, well, he has so many shots and he has so many dangerous chances, but he's not creating those chances. Those chances are created by Parise on the forecheck. It's created by Mikael Granlund being a puck distributor and a puck possessor. And the difference between Vanek and Pominville is that even when Vanek wasn't scoring, he was gift wrapping goals to Brodziak. He was gift wrapping goals, finding a way to create offense for teammates. When Jason Pominville's not scoring, he's not doing that. He's not a very well-versed defensive player. He's not a physical guy. He's not a guy that's really carried the puck well, and he's not a guy that's creating offense for other players. So, when people argue Corsi and, Parise and Granlund are better with Jason Pominville on that line, I would just argue if you have Coyle on that line, not only would you add a big body to two guys that are slight of stature, but you would also add a guy that's going to be better on the walls, and he's going to add a net front present.
I'm gonna throw something in here. Just mix it up. What if you put Carter on the third line? Carter's shown he can score. He had the shorty. He had another good goal. He plays with ultimate tenacity. He's defensively sound. He's not a liability. Would you put him at center on the third with those two? Move Holla to the fourth.
If this continued and Granlund's line struggled for a few more games, and if Pominville still goes without a goal, then I think, and the key thing is if Carter continued playing the way that he has, because right now Carter's playing as a third-line guy. That hasn't always been the case. There have been games where he's sort of disappeared. But
absolutely, throughout his career.
Right. But if Carter played like this, like he has the last 4 games or so, if he played like that every night, then that sort of gives you the flexibility to make a move.
Well, and it's not just him, too. I mean, it's that whole fourth line is really coming through. And so that it's kind of the same question there. If you can have your fourth line playing like that against a first line, do you really want to break them up either?
Well, and that's why Jordan Schrader's on the third line right now. I think that they would rather have a guy like Carter there, but right now they're hesitant to break up Porter, Howell, and Carter.
Yeah.
So Schrader is slotted in there, and they're hoping and crossing their fingers that he does more than he has his first 2 regular
Eventually, you
games.
have to sacrifice your fourth line and potentially your third line to feed your first. I mean, quote unquote, your first line or your 1A or 1B, however you want to call it, because you can't. I mean, and I'm buying into the fact that you got to shake things up. I mean, you got to shake things up eventually. You can't just keep doing what you're doing because you have a world-class winger that is getting goals and has started a season extremely hot, but not getting
he must be so frustrated.
Not getting a whole lot of support. He's probably frustrated, but he's never going to say it.
Yeah,
because he is.
I think he likes playing with them.
He's
too.
Minnesota nice, and he's never going to come out and bash on a fellow teammate. Where somebody else around the league would be like, "Get this scab off my line.
Yeah.
He's bringing me down." I mean, he'll never say that, but would he welcome a Charlie Coyle to come up to that line or somebody else? I'm sure he would like to mix it up.
I totally agree that you need to mix things up. Unfortunately, right now we're just in a situation where we're kind of between a rock and a hard place, and what do you do? And with injuries, and we got a couple fast games coming up too. I think Yo's a little bit less apt to move around that first line when you've got a couple fast games coming up. Kind of like, let's see what happens, and
there's no reinforcements,
nothing.
That's like now.
The baby Wild is injured and they suck.
What did I see?
Yeah, we looked like we were good depth, and then all of a sudden, like injury.
18
no
goals
depth.
in 11 games.
Yes, yeah. I did some stats homework.
Well done. Wow.
I did some stats homework this week.
Yeah, that's bad.
And you're looking at
your
Michael
guy Felska follows the Iowa Wild more than anybody I know.
He just tweeted something at us.
Felska is
there. It is Felska. I just gave you some love.
Here's what people have to appreciate about Felska. Felska is he's a school teacher. He's a football coach. He is a go forward type of guy,
and he's a damn good American.
And he owns, he owns his opinions, right, wrong, regardless, right? He doesn't hedge, he doesn't waffle, he doesn't not watch a game and then try to tweet you about how this person had 6 shots, so they had a great game. No, you didn't. Just because you had 6 shots doesn't make a great game. And so
he actually said, 1 second, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
Felska says, oops, someone's calling me. Hold on, declined. Felska's sorry to whoever's calling me.
Mom. Voicemail.
Fuck you, Grandma.
Yes, aggressive.
Yes, that's the first one.
There's the F word.
One?
Man,
2 weeks in a row.
Why does the Canadian always give us the explicit tag?
But not only was it the F-bomb, but it was "fuck you, Grandma." Was the first one? How good
is
that?
It was for emphasis. Sorry,
it's
Granny.
worth it. It's
Granny,
worth
I'm
it.
really sorry.
Love you.
Okay. At Minnesota Wild from Felska, are the Iowa Wild going to have to fold for being a train wreck for a second season and working on a third? # shots fired. # for sure.
Yes, you got to drink. Shots fired. Proud of you.
Yeah,
it's
good. Tough times right now down there.
In Iowa, I think it really compounds the fact that we have all these young players that graduated early, and then you traded a bunch of picks away.
They've got some injuries.
Savvily, I mean, you traded these picks and you made good trades. but you're all in because this is the window, right? Like, we're in the window for this veteran group to win a cup. And we've been in it for the last 3 years since the Parise Suter summer. That's your window to win a cup, right? So then you make these trades, but you're missing some like higher end offensive players because right now you're in Iowa. You're looking at Michael Karanin. You're looking at
Zach Dalpe.
Who's
Zach
hurt?
Dalpe.
Is it his groin too, right?
Kieran, I mean, he hasn't panned out the way the Wild thought they were going. I mean,
although he's the most skilled offensive player down there. I mean,
he's very skilled. It just hasn't really translated the way that they've hoped to the North American game. And
he makes Mikael Granlund look like he's been in the weight room a little bit more. You know, he's like slight of stature.
There are just so many reasons why Iowa's not very good. And they've got blue line defense. Olofsson and Riley are two very good, defenseman prospects, but the zero goaltending and the forwards aren't very good. And it's just, there's such little forward depth right now.
Name a goaltender at Iowa right now. Can you name a goaltender at Iowa right now?
Gustafson?
Nope.
Leland?
Huh?
Leland?
You know Leland. Yes, Leland Irving is there. But neither one, Brady Hoffman's not there, and Stefan Michalek, neither one of them are in Iowa. They're actually in Alaska.
CHL.
Alaska, right? Alaska Aces? Yeah. And so, I mean, beyond just not having like a scorer, you have like two top tier like defensive prospects in Olofsson and Riley, who are like minus 12. Not that plus minus is like a great stat anymore, but just in general, they're
Riley's going to be good though. I'm excited to see him.
Well, that's what
happens.
When you're a defenseman playing a ton of minutes on a team that is not very good and getting outscored 4-1, your plus minus is going to be ugly. I mean, we saw that with Suter in January when his plus minus was minus 20 in 22 games or something, and he,
when he was playing 35
he
minutes
was aware of that
stupid.
and wasn't thrilled that we were putting that out there every night. But that's just the way it is if you're a defenseman playing big minutes on a team that's getting crushed every night.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, to watch out for going forward. December is the worst month ever for Wild hockey. Like, December collapses.
I don't think that's a yo thing. That's a Wild thing.
No, it's a yo thing. It's like literally under December collapses are just like world famous, world renowned, and then they put it back together. They have put it back together and saved his job many times, allegedly. And that's when maybe he was safe the whole time.
And that's when we play the "Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now" song.
Yes.
Yeah, that's when I get it queued up.
But there's nobody.
Aaron, you're on notice.
There's like until Chuck Fletcher can find somebody to take Backstrom's contract.
Which is never going to happen.
He doesn't have flexibility.
So that brings up a point. Chad, what are your thoughts on? I mean, we've just absolutely just belabored the goalie situation in Minnesota, and I will hold my thought that it stems from Josh Harding. I mean, it is a trickle down effect from Josh Harding all the way down. But okay, Josh Harding's gone.
What a jerk!
Yeah, shut up.
Every week he's got to bring it up.
But do you agree?
Sure. I mean, you go back to the year that Backstrom signed his contract, and they had to sign him. I mean, that was the big thing. Was
correct.
After the lockout shortened season, he has his injury in the playoffs. He played like 42 of 48 games when the schedule was so condensed that 3 and 4s were like nothing to these guys. Right. He's playing every single night. They signed him to the contract, and it sort of all fell apart from there. And you could look back and in hindsight say they should have taken 1 year off the term, and in an ideal world they would have. They wanted to. Yeah. But when you're Backstrom and you're Backstrom's agent, you can play hardball a little bit when there were no other goalies that the Wild could sign at that time, and that's the big
They
thing.
missed on 2 of them. They missed on Bernier and they missed on Bishop, who were traded that summer too, and the Wild was definitely in on it. But it would have cost you Jason Zucker.
Right.
It would have cost you prospects you don't want to give up.
In hindsight, what would we have been saying if that would have been the case if those goalies wouldn't have panned out? I mean, you never know.
And then
what
you
watch
Zucker go score 35 goals somewhere else.
Exactly.
And wonder, we still can't figure this out.
You don't let a guy like that walk away. And then, especially with a goaltender, with an unknown. Yeah. I mean, goaltenders, how many times have we given picks and given prospects, while there might be lower prospects, but I mean, people away, and then goaltenders don't pan out. I mean, we gave away. What was the rounder we gave away for Briz? It was like a 2nd round pick for Briz, 4th round pick for Briz, 2nd round pick for
which
Dubnyk.
was a genius moment. 4th round pick for Briz.
I mean, nothing else.
Get
I mean,
what
just,
you got
just
out
from
of him.
Just from a PR
Genius
perspective.
moment.
I mean, a PR perspective, the guy was just gold. I mean, he was absolute PR gold.
He wasn't even playing. He was in Oklahoma. He wasn't even in Edmonton when we traded a 4th round pick for him. He was in Oklahoma.
He was in Edmonton, wasn't he? Because he had to go.
He was in Edmonton.
He had a rental car because this is one of the great Briz stories because he had so many of them. But we were talking to him the day that he got traded. And rather than talking about his new team or his old team, he's like, well, I got to go over to the rental car station because I got to give them my car. But, you guys are reminding me I got to go fill up on my gas. So he's just talking about his rental car the whole time because he apparently had a rental car in Edmonton that he had to go return.
Just rambling.
Just great. I mean, he was one of my favorite hockey players that I've covered. So many good things.
Just
from
a
him.
goofy guy. I mean, he was taking selfies and through the glass with people.
That was hysterical.
It shows the culture too. Like when you're from Russia, it's just a different culture there. I had a Russian roommate in college, and he was as aggressive or more aggressive than me, which made it weird for me because I'm always the most aggressive.
And they're
one.
eccentric. They're eccentric people.
And he was just a straightforward. He wouldn't do this like the Minnesota Nice. Like, yeah, Chad, I might read your column, which means I'm never gonna read it, right? Or like I'm gonna look it up, and they're like, fuck, who is that guy? I have no idea. That's what Minnesota people do. Briz be like, no, I'm not gonna. No.
Have you ever been to like an actual like Russian family dinner, like as an adult? Like, oh my gosh,
I'm guessing
I had a friend from high
there's
school.
a lot of vodka.
That
so
was my
much
first
vodka.
thought.
There is so much vodka. You guys. I had
Potato
a friend
juice
from
is
high
just
school.
flowing.
His parents, they moved here from Russia, and you could not totally understand what they were saying most of the time. But there was just always a lot of crazy Russian food that like she would cook for like 15 hours before you came over for dinner, and then just tons of vodka and red wine. So clearly it was right up my alley.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe we should just
Wheelhouse.
I'll make the.
I hope they got there were cool hats.
You know what
because
we could
that's the
do?
one thing I love about those damn Russians is the cool hats.
We could do a special show, Moscow on the Hill. I have a friend, his parents own Moscow on the Hill, which is just up the hill from the Excel Center.
I'm guessing it's on the hill.
Is it on a hill?
Otherwise, it's such a creative name.
Selby, like the good part of Selby, not like the part of Selby where they're shooting most days.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
Shots fired, literally.
So
Shout out to the Selby Cider.
Let's do that. That sounds really fun. I'm gonna stay on the goalie topic, Chad.
Sure.
As somebody who's doesn't show any bias, are you, like a lot of fans, hitting a panic button with Doobie? Are you seeing that he's turning around at the end of the games? Where is he for the whole game? What are your thoughts on him right now?
I think there's definitely reason to be disappointed a little bit. It doesn't pass the eye test. It doesn't pass the advanced stats test. There are a number of reasons to be concerned, but I think that what Dubnyk showed for the second half of last season has to outweigh what he's shown the first 11 games of this season. And in fairness, I think his last couple games have been better. As a goalie, I mean, you talk to scouts, agents, everybody, so much of it is the goals that you allow. You can't allow certain goals. You can't allow your first shot. You can't allow one from
two out of the
when
first
a
four
guy
shots.
comes right over the blue line. You can't allow a goal right after your team scores. So there have been some problems, but overall, I wouldn't be too concerned just because I think that the Wild can't play this poorly defensively. I mean, it's
and that's
so
what I was gonna say. How much of
uncharacteristically.
it do you think is poor defense in front of him?
A little bit. I mean, the Backus goal right over the blue line
Right.
definitely sticks out. So there have been some goals that are not just because of that,
Right.
but it's been so uncharacteristic, the Wild playing sloppy in their own zone. It's just not what you've come to see from a Mike Yeo team. And I think 11 games is a small enough sample size where you think to yourself, this is going to get corrected. This isn't going to last.
So it's funny that you say that because I was thinking about this, and I actually did read what you wrote today about this. Was that or
gotta think
yesterday,
what I
whenever
wrote.
it was about it.
Bonus point.
We generally are a more defensive team. And, they say we're going to work on our offense. So now our offense is out there. We're scoring 4 or 5 goals a game, but now our defense is struggling. And I think it's more like we're scoring 3, giving up 3 a game on average. So what do you think about that? Is it because we've worked on our offense, or is it just kind of how it's...
I kind of think that it's just early season struggles a little bit. I think that, it's so early where the structure hasn't been drilled in quite as much. I think it's just bound to turn around. Will it turn around to the extent of last season where the PK was the number 1 unit and they
Right.
finished 6th in goals against? maybe not. But the impressive thing about last season, I mean, they finished 6th in the league in goals against, and that was with goaltending for a number of large stretches.
Yeah,
that
was patchwork.
So
it was Darcy's our number one, and then it's Nicholas Backstrom.
And I know Dubnyk was great at the end, but to finish 6th in the league after all that, I think
was also unbelievable for those.
And you look at that last stretch, he never allowed more than 2 goals in a game.
He was insane. I mean, he played out of his mind, and that's where I kind of feel for him right now, because I think that when you play at a level like that, in the clutch when we needed you to play like that, I mean, do I think the problem is his first period of every game. You can't give up 2 out of the first shots on goal. That's not how, and then come back and then he's playing lights out at the end. It's just, we need you for the whole game.
You got to be able to settle in quick, and that's the thing with a goaltender is sometimes it takes that time to get them settled in, and you want to have them get shots early to get them engaged in the game, because if they go cold, that's sometimes where goalies have problems in the second and third periods, is if they're cold in the first period, and then all of a sudden they get rifled shots at them. They're like, whoa, what's going on? I'm totally, I'm not on my game, and they're back there getting cold. But to the defense point, I'm gonna bring one up, and this is close to home for you. This is a UMass Lowell guy.
Oh boy.
So, what's the deal with Folan being in the press box versus Prosser? I don't agree with it personally, because Folan is a younger future guy, and Prosser's a familiar, I think, boring guy, and I'm not a fan at all with Prosser taking minutes over Folan, who has a higher ceiling to me.
I don't have a drink. I would say Yo knows best on this.
Well, no shit. I mean, I said it.
Yo comes pissed out and he explains how good Prosser's been. It's like,
I'm pissed when they re-sign him, because that was. I thought about you. I'm like, this is a comfortable player.
It's the bailout,
that they re-signed.
It's the bailout.
And I don't like the crutch of him. It's fine if it's a crutch. It's not fine if he is taking minutes away from a player on the rise versus a player that is diminishing.
And the amazing thing about the last couple of games is him and Matt Dumba have not played very much, Prosser and Dumba. I mean, it's been a 4-defenseman show, even if Scandella, conceivably has been the third-line defenseman. But, I mean, at the start of the season, that was the plan, was Folan was going to play more games. They were going to get him action. He was going to improve. This was his chance. So he plays a couple games, strains his groin. They say, we might as well put Prosser in, give him, why play Folan a little dinged up this early in the season? And then they just haven't minded Prosser's play enough to the point where if Prosser plays tomorrow night against the Nashville
Folan's
Predators,
going down.
The Wild are very seriously considering sending Folan down to the AHL to get him some games down there,
which would be unbelievably bad. Like that's unbelievable bad.
He does not have to pass through waivers, right?
No, he does not.
Okay, so if he doesn't have to pass through waivers, I'm not as upset about it to get him some higher minutes, and that's fine. But I still cannot get past the Prosser love affair that's happening here. I mean, the guy is not great. I mean, if he's sound, okay, but you got to get people in there that have upside.
He gives bad penalties. I mean, the one good thing about him, he can play both sides, right?
Yep.
For whatever reason, he's earned the confidence of Yo. Maybe he mixes it up a little bit. He has a little bit more agitator than most of what we've come to.
And Yo likes that.
Yes, but.
Nothing to say Folan can't be that guy, because he's a big guy. And he can throw the body around more than Prosser can.
I've literally, I've written about it, I've tweeted about it, and I'm to the point where I might even apply for a press pass and have Eklund try to work it out, or, however it works, just because I want to be the guy to go and ask Yo, why don't you play Matthew Dumba with Ryan Suter? Because they seem to be the perfect combination of things. You're allowed to keep a left D with a right D, with a left shot, with a right shot. You allow this kid to have a safety blanket. You can play Jared Spurgeon and Scandella together because they have 7 years worth of chemistry, and then you team up the Finns together, and you have Jonas Brodin play with Christian Folan, and Christian Folan is what Jonas isn't. Christian Folan's a bigger kid. He's a right defender. He's a skill size complement. If somebody takes an extra shot on Jonas, Christian Folan will go defend him, and then you allow these D pairs to have chemistry, man.
and have balance. I would say, furthermore, not just chemistry, but balance across the board.
And if Yo totally wants to, and I know you want to say it, and so
I love it. Chad's getting into it.
And if
Where's
Yo,
my whistle?
Yeah, if Yo wants to have deep pairs that can play against anybody, that'd be the way to do it.
Let me take a sip of beer before I ask you. I got 2 questions before your thoughts on this.
All right,
did he say any of his buzzwords?
I like.
I take 3 sips of beer because for all the crap he just said.
My first question would be: are you comfortable with the way Matt Dumba's playing right now? Playing him 25 minutes a night. And my second question would be: are you comfortable playing Christian Folin 20 minutes a night?
I think
not
great
full
points,
balance, by the way.
Great,
not full balance.
So great points, right? And I think playing Dumba with Suter means that you reduce Suter's minutes, which is good for everybody.
Yeah, I mean
Dumba's
they
not
have
playing
reduced
20 minutes
his.
a night right now.
So it comes down, and then you have a more even pairing. I think honestly the reason why, and Dumba struggled, right? But Dumba's also had genius moments, and he's proven
That's
that
another
he
one,
can,
by the way, for you at home.
Genius
moments.
Drinking.
Is a drinking one. You better take a drink.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yep. Thursday mornings can be tough sometimes. I'm going to warn you of that,
Yeah.
Chad.
And
I've been on the road. We're good.
Yeah.
and Dumba's proven at the NHL level that his ability to create the attention that he draws to him, especially on the power play, they have to shade to him for his shot, for his ability. He's shown that he's capable of this. I think, honestly...
But right now he can't even get on the power
he's
play
not
because
even
he's
on it.
struggling so much.
But he can't get on the power play because Jason Pominville won't come off the top line, though, too.
He can't get on the power play because
because
he's not playing well enough to be on the power play.
But
He's not one of the best 3 offensive defensemen right now. I mean, the way that he's playing.
but-
Last season, I'm 100% with you.
Yes.
This season,
Yes.
though, I think Scandello's better offensively, Spurgeon's better
Yes.
offensively, and Suter's miles
Well,
ahead of where he was last year.
Suter plays better quarterback now, especially because, and I will tell you why, is because they've switched up Pominville on the other point.
Yes,
with
that,
Parisi.
But that was my argument last year. It's like, why is Pominville playing the point if he loses puck battles every single game? If he doesn't get his shot through, it was just stubbornness.
So I'd rather put somebody down in Pominville's spot, keep Suter playing the quarterback because he and Parisi are having a nice little.
Yeah.
It was almost like a diamond shape where you're having the forwards down and he's kind of the sole D.
And I'm not even saying Dumba has to play on the top power play unit. That's not even what I'm saying.
Would you take Spurgeon or Scandella off?
Good off of the
question.
top power play?
No, the second unit.
Off the second
Like
unit?
to put Matt Dumba there, you got to take
Neither.
Scandella or Spurgeon.
Neither. Well, I would play them together even strength is what I'm saying. When you play Dumba together,
How about the power
hold
play
on.
question?
If you play Dumba, and I'll get there. If you play Dumba and Suter together, even strength, then you allow Dumba to activate to do all the things where he's created genius moments at Red Deer, at Portland,
Here.
nationally.
He's shown streaks here.
And he's shown it here. But you also have a safety blanket
I bought
for
his jersey,
Suter.
just so you know.
And I would say like the most
55 or 24?
I wanted the dumbass,
24,
but I bought
24.
24.
All right.
and I think the most offensive thing that Suter does consistently is the long stretch pass.
Definitely. Yeah,
and
I agree with you.
Or even carrying in and being a big body to get it over the line, maintain the zone so that they can set up an offensive possession.
And that's what Parisi will say on the power play. He loves about having Suter on the top power play because he says very few people can gain the zone like Suter can on the power play.
Yes, here's why I don't think that Dumba, Suter, Spurgeon, Scandella, Brodin, because he's playing the left. That's the other tired narrative, and I'll drink to that too.
There
is
it is.
that
Boy, by the end of this rant, I'm going to be half buzzed.
I know.
There it is.
Yeah, that's what happens here.
Off the beautiful
Welcome
beer
to a podcast with Tony
Summit
Bean.
EPA.
No doubt. The tired narrative was, well, Brodin likes to play the right side, and he can't play the left side, and it's not. But then you did it this year. But then you played him with the wrong guy. Yeah, I mean, you played him with a guy that it just doesn't make sense, man. And you should.
You're talking Brodin with Dumba?
Yes, man, because neither one of those guys, that pairing gets trapped in the zone far too often because Dumba's physical, but he's not big enough to be a physical presence. Brodin doesn't move bodies from in front of the net, and both of those guys are skater, skilled, finesse sorts of defensemen where their skating is like above average, and it makes like genius moments where you can't dump and chase on them. They'll carry out, they'll move it out of the zone. But the adversity is, I think that Yo doesn't want to play Dumba or Brodin on what would be considered the third pair, because then maybe you're making that guy take a step back when he's so highly thought of by the front office.
I just think that the other part of it is right now, the way that they've played the first 11 games, three of their best 4 defensemen have been lefties. Matt Dumba, I don't think, has been one of their best 4 defensemen this season. I think that Scandella, Spurgeon, Brodin, and Suter, and so you're stuck with the same problem they had last year, where 3 of your best 4 defensemen are lefties, and do you make one of them play righty? Do you try to balance it out? And if you watch it, they start with these pairings, but Rick Wilson, who is the assistant coach who rolls out the defensive pairings, by the third period, he'll go with who's playing well. And in St. Louis, Matt Dumba saw, 3 shifts in the third period? And that it was a game that included overtime.
Well, he only played 13 minutes, I think, didn't he, on Saturday?
Yeah. But I also...
And Prosser was 8. It was a 4-defenseman show.
Yeah. I would just argue the role, though. If you play Matt Dumba with Jonas Brodin, you're looking for him to be the hammer. You're looking for him to be the guy that's going to separate an opponent from the puck, and Jonas Brodin's going to be the chase defenseman. And
but you got to be pleased with Suter and Spurgeon so far. Other than the one game in Winnipeg, they've been great.
Yeah, that one Sunday night game was
a rough
tough.
One, but other than that.
And I would say that Spurgeon, arguably, in my mind at least, has been the best defenseman in both zones consistently
Better
for the last
Suter?
2 years.
Oh,
yes.
2 years.
Yes, for the last 2 years. Suter offensively, not better than Spurgeon ever. Right? Suter's a little bit better in the defensive, but not really. I mean, not really. Suter was kind of brutal last year defensively when it comes to goals getting scored on him.
But
turnovers,
that comes back to how many minutes he was playing.
and he
too.
handles the puck a bunch. I totally get that.
Well, it's different talents, though. I mean, you cannot compare apples to oranges because, I mean, Suter is the sound stabilizer, and Spurgeon has shown that he has more offensive upside.
But Jared Spurgeon's led the team in hits. He's led the team in hits for defensemen.
That's a funky stat, though. I wouldn't really rely on
it.
It is
a funky
and Suter Suter is very self-depreciating at times, and he's had some good jokes about his hit stat.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of them I can share, but after he got, after his elbow against Downey, he had a good line about his hits. I don't think he would like if I share, but he had a good line about how, he doesn't hit anybody. Part of the reason that he played so much was that he wasn't going out of his way and spending a ton of energy on hits, and maybe that will increase now that he's not playing as much.
He wasn't playing like clutterbuck hockey. He wasn't trying to play like over-energetic hockey.
It's so different, and that's the other thing about your possible pairing that I'm having a tough time picturing is Suter is such a stable, not go anywhere guy, and then you watch Dumba in his defensive zone,
over.
and he seems like a young puppy, whereas like the next toy he's running off to.
He sees something bright and shiny, and he
has ADD.
But don't you want the calming influence? Don't you want Ryan Suter to be there? Because if you look at now, Shea Weber. Shea Weber has a guy that's slight of stature that
You're talking Yossi?
In Yossi, where it balances itself out though. And
I think Yossi's almost Spurgeon-esque in the way that they're offensive and can get up in the rush.
I personally, I will say this, and I'm not trying
to. Isn't Dumba too?
But I'm not trying to take away. I'm not trying to take away what you're doing.
Spurgeon's steadier than Dumba, I would say, in the defense.
1,000%. Yeah.
How about this? I mean, you have to be happier with Spurgeon playing instead of Brodin. I mean,
yes.
with Suter. I mean, that's a step in the right direction.
Except for Spurgeon and Scandella have 7 years worth of chemistry. Like, those guys complement each other completely.
I think that, this early in the season, though, they can try other things and know they can always fall back to Spurgeon and Scandella.
Yeah.
And even if they don't play together all season until February, they know that Spurgeon and Scandella can be together and play well.
But the fallback won't be, if it ends up Spurgeon and Scandella, it won't be Dumba and Suter.
No.
It'll be Brodin.
Right.
And my only question with Brodin Suter,
unless someone got hurt.
My only question with Brodin Suter is that when you play the heavier teams, when you play the Kings, when you play the Sharks, even when you play like Chicago, the third and fourth lines, they tend to dominate the net front. They tend to dominate the boards against a Suter Brodin because they just don't move bodies. And I also look at Dumba as a guy who can be so much more than just an average guy. I mean, he's a game-breaking type of player.
When he shows it, I think you might be onto something, but the first 11 games, he just hasn't earned. And for a young kid, and especially with Mike Yeo, so much of it, and this goes back to what we were talking about with Zucker, to Mike Yeo and frankly to a lot of players, including the captain and others, you have to show, if you're under 23, you have to show that you've earned it. And that's part of why Koivu has so much respect for Zucker, is because in Koivu's eyes, he's earned it.
Oh, and he should. And
that's
Zucker,
and that's a continued narrative. If you want to just modify your like
going.
the continued narrative is all the players that get sent back down to have that maturation process, to have you have to earn it. This is no entitlement.
There is very much a respect thing from the veterans in the locker room to the guys who have spent time on the buses and the minors.
You're getting
and all that.
slapped down to the minors, and you're gonna earn it. Whether it is Scandella, whether it is Spurgeon, whether it is Zucker, whether it is Dumba, whether it is, I mean, the list goes on and on to say all these players that had to go back down after they were deemed like the future,
Yeah.
like they got a little big head and it's like, you didn't make it you didn't make it out of camp. Like we're gonna send you back down to Iowa and previously to Houston, like to earn your merit and earn your worth, and before you come back up to the show.
And if a guy can prove it, like Brodin was, right up after the lockout, he was right up.
Brodin didn't do that, but he showed it.
Proved it, but to the veterans, I can't say it means so much to them when the guys go down and spend the time down there, whether it benefits them or not. Like after Dumba spent time last season, remember how much better Dumba was after he spent time than before?
The whole team was so much better the second time he came up, so I think it's a different style of play.
I don't want to keep talking about Zucker, but Zucker was one that was a unique story that he was
targeted. He was targeted.
But he was the guy that scored in the playoffs against Chicago.
A big goal.
And then
overtime.
And then sent down and played and had an injury and had a setback and really had to swallow that pride and say, okay, I'm gonna do what I need to do to really improve my game before I come back up. And once I do, I can hold my head high to say, I did the things I needed to do to get my game back to the elevated level that it is at now.
I'll admit too, I'm a prospects geek. Like I love the draft. I love everything to do with like up and comers and trying to figure out who is like the next thing. So being at like the prospect camps and being at training camp and stuff like that.
Do you go to that, like the development camp in the summer?
100%. Not only that, I write in depth, player for player. Like I was on Reed Duke and I was on Chase Lang and Derek Felska was on Reed Duke, and then watching those kids, like Reed Duke is a amazing. Like that kid was like dominating prospect camp. And
recently, I mean, if you long ago, I mean, I was a Ballmer geek for a while.
Yeah, and even Ballmer too. You're like, what happened?
Yeah,
and vice versa. Zach Phillips. You're like, he has the pedigree. He played with Coyle, out in the Q, and so they had all these points together. And then like, what happens? And so with Zucker specifically, I watch in training camp. He's the guy. Putting in the extra effort. He's the guy digging all the pucks out of the goal. He's the guy making sure he's vocal with everybody. And you can just tell that he's a guy with the skill that put together that he needs to do the work and he needs to make sure that he pays the dues. And I don't think that was guaranteed. You can have skilled kids. I think the best example of it is like Cam Barker. Cam Barker, all the skills in the world, never fits in anywhere, never is able to blend to a system, and finds himself out of hockey in like one of the biggest like letdowns because of the talent-wise. And so
probably compared to A.J. Thielen. I mean,
and A.J. Thielen's like our local example, being a Prior Lake kid and just unbelievable.
First-round wasted draft picks.
Zucker, the point I'll make with Zucker is that Koivu should respect him because he's been finding Koivu all over the ice. He's been
and Koivu respected him before that. Talking to Koivu in training camp, he was happy to be playing with two. What are they? Both 22, 23.
The young guys. They've just sparked him.
They really have, and I think that's been arguably the most underrated story of the first 11 games. Is just how rejuvenated Koivu looks, and this is a guy who he was the biggest goat in the playoffs, and he was the guy everybody was ripping and saying,
get rid of him. No one's going to take him. We're not going to get rid of that contract.
And he's been outstanding.
I think he's the best player on the team.
And think about this. I mean, you don't, again, this is something we don't see, but we read it, through people like yourself.
Through us clowns.
Yes, that's right.
Clowns.
Honored guests is like I would say.
Honored guests.
We were going to say special
bringing
guests.
it back.
Whatever.
Clowns.
Yeah. But Koivu has spent time after practice, like with people that want to do more. He's the one that's spending the time out there, and that's good for us to see and read because we don't see that, and we immediately could jump to conclusions. But he is playing and being captain-esque because he is spending the time with Zucker, with other people to do the passes, to do the one-timers, to do other things that captains are supposed to do. And he's not looking for accolades. He's not looking for, hey, I was out here doing this and sparking back when people criticize. He's being that guy. And I read a little bit about that, and it really changed. Aside from his play this year, it's changed my view of him so much more to see that because that is what a captain is.
Right.
And I love Parisi like no other, but, I mean, to show that a person can take that big of heat from the past years but still is steadfast in how they approach the game and wants to help the up-and-comers, that says a lot about a player and a person.
And he's playing in the paint this year. He's playing closer. He's not doing the thing where he's like stationary on the sideboard and he wants to be like the distributor. He's actually like more aggressive. He's using his big body and he's shooting.
And he's playing in October, November, and hopefully December, which is something a lot of years we don't see.
Miko is shooting the puck, Miko.
And it's amazing to go back to your point about captaincies. Like when we go to all these other cities and watch their optional practice, how many captains either skip it or even a regular practice? Like they'll be off in 5 minutes. They'll go do a couple turns and off they go, and that's that. And it's just sort of amazing the work that Koivu does and how much goes into it. Like a couple weeks ago, usually the media is all standing outside the locker room, and a couple of the veterans are always the first ones off. And so we'll go in after the first couple veterans into the locker room, and then everybody else sort of trickles in. The younger guys stay out longer. And so I was supposed to talk to Miko for something. I can't even remember what it was, but it was not about the captaincy or anything like that. And I'm waiting and looking around and like at all the stalls that are still empty, and it's just Koivu's stall that's empty, like Howa's stall and Folin or something like that. I'm like, he can't possibly still be on the ice, can he? We're 30 minutes after practice. So I walk out, and he's actually standing there with Eric Howa, just giving him puck after puck, giving him shots in the slot. And
nice.
It's some of the stuff that people don't see about Koivu that is just so underrated or just hidden from people.
And that's exactly the story I was thinking about. Is that those two players? I mean, granted they have a kindred nationality, but that type of thing for a player that has tremendous upside but has not maybe really fulfilled what the expectations were of him, that the captain will take the time to spend with him and dish out some pucks and help him get back to the level that he can be at.
And you can tell that he's intuitive about what it is for him to be now. I mean, granted, he has Saku, right? And so he has Saku to like provide them like the framework of what it is to be like a veteran, no longer the captain, goes to Anaheim,
right.
And then they have cups. And the reason they have cups is because Teemu and Saku influence these young players and help them along, right?
Yeah.
So
did you read the Russo article about Miko?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and I just know that the window for these guys is closing. The window for Pominville to be a top line right wing is closing. The window for Koivu to be a top six center is closing.
Well, do you think that part of his resurgence this year, especially to see him in the beginning of the season playing so well, is because he had so much fun with the young guys last year? And I think that the second part of the season, while it was probably pretty stressful, was really fun for them. And I think that for an older guy like him who knows that, you're getting towards the end, now, and you want to make this happen. I mean, I the way that I see him on the ice now, it just looks like he's having fun, honestly.
It's an evolution. I think it's at 100%. I believe it's an evolution of player. So when Miko signs the contract that he's on now, Gabourik's gone. He's the franchise player, and then you have a bunch of like blue collar guys but this is supposed to be your superstar. And really what Mikko Koivu has always been is a two-way guy that loves to limit the opponents. So you have a guy who isn't like a true superstar in this role. Now he's able to trust Nino and he's able to trust Zucker to carry the play, to set up the offense. He has a specific role in this, and I mean it's completely translated. A lot of this too. You can put on Nino because Nino was in the doghouse last year. I mean, he replaced Zucker in the doghouse, and Nino, his play in both ends, his temperament, his maturity, especially coming from Long Island, where they dumped him as a failed prospect. I mean, when you grasp how little,
isn't that amazing?
When you grasp how little, I mean, it was. It was.
They showed so little respect to him that they didn't even call him up as a black ace. Like they had no desire for him.
And when he did play, he was playing like fourth line minutes. They're like, "Wow, you're not making it." We traded Clutterbuck and a third-round pick for Nino, and Nino is a top 6 right wing. Like
that's a hell of a move.
And so,
thank you, Garth Snow.
Yes,
well, that was Fletcher's best trade until Dubnyk.
Yes.
Yeah, and hopefully,
yes,
right.
And so I just think it's a credit to Mikko Koivu not only for being like the presence and being the proud Finn and like making sure that we don't take shitty penalties when Ryan Reeves takes a fucking cheap shot. Fuck Ryan Reeves, by the way.
Just got fined. He just got fined 3 Gs.
He's a big guy too.
Ooh,
by the way, what does that mean? I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole. But what is this bullshit like fines that the NHL does? Like
the highest is like $4,500.
I'm going to fine you $3,000 for some crazy elbow.
Okay, really quickly because I know we're getting kind of long. We only have a few questions left. The Fontaine hit.
I mean that's garbage.
Clean?
That's garbage.
Not clean.
Knee to knee. You clearly saw he diverted, and you went knee to knee. I mean MCL injury 6 weeks. That's crap.
Also, is that what you believe? Is that it's
well?
just
Here's
crap,
what I'm saying.
And the NHL needs to own that.
Are you going to just savage this when I believed that the Cook hit on Barry in the playoffs? I thought that was terrible that he got hurt, but I didn't see it as Cook was not trying to injure that kid.
That was not malicious.
He was trying to put a hit on that kid. So isn't it the same thing? Kind of. He was trying to put a hit on him, and it just ended up knee to knee.
In theory,
because this is where we get wrapped up because we're invested.
Okay.
We're invested.
I
need.
In theory, it was the same, but to the league, when you slow it down, the difference was that Cook needed to put out his knee in order to hit him, and Desjardins was going the same way, and it wasn't like he had to jut his knee out the other way. So it should have been more than a 2-minute tripping. I mean, the fact that it was a tripping penalty is laughable and speaks to the league. But referees are told, err on the side of caution in an incident like this, and we'll take a look at it. And if there's supplemental discipline, we'll handle that. In hindsight, it should have been a 5-minute major. But I just have a tough time suspending Desjardins.
And maybe I'm not so angry about it if it is a 5-minute major. But when you're looking at it with this 2-minute minor and you see this blatant hit, and somebody who was playing so well, who came back from an injury and has been playing so well,
especially
to see him go down like that.
Started slow and then all of a sudden he was back
and
to
started with an injury in a contract year.
He was being like the Swiss Army knife that we know Fontaine is, where he vibes with Bannock. He does enough to like create this moment where you're like, man, Justin Fontaine is like the best kept secret type of guy.
And after seeing that hit, I mean, I think I consider us, if it is true that is the injury, very lucky, because to me that looked like his leg snapped in half. Like when you watch that in slow motion.
Well, and I would hope, and this is where people are human, and where the league you'd think would be okay. And I don't want to say like we owe you one, but I would hope that they would say we owe you one. I mean, we just didn't call something on somebody that just took out your player for 6 weeks. Maybe we'll be a little more mindful of things that happen to you, a la a criminal from the chats like body slamming people, or that
look who comes to town next week,
fat Bufflin.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the point. Is like, okay, when the next person takes liberties, are you going to maybe say, hey, let's keep an eye on this, or does it? And this is maybe where our flyover conversation comes into play. We just don't give a shit.
Yeah. Yes.
Because you're not
truly
because
believe they do.
You're not New York,
Well,
Chicago,
we'll see.
LA, and so on.
Let me ask you this, and I'm sorry to derail. I know that we got to do other stuff. I know that we do. I just want to ask you, why does Philly get to trade Chris Pronger's contract? Why does LA get to have this weird buyout situation with
that one is
with
weird.
Richards? Why does New Jersey get out of the penalty for signing Ilya Kovalchuk? Why is there?
Well, they did get penalized, and then it got redacted.
Right.
And so they didn't get penalized. Basically, is the reality. Why is there this ability to make up the rules as you go?
That's the NHL. I mean, that's what they do.
Okay.
The NHL is a league of making up rules as
and
you go.
changing rules every
We
year.
should have had the Wild Wild West song queued up.
Here in Minnesota.
But in all seriousness,
yeah.
that's what the NHL is. They make up they change rules.
Something changes every
more
year.
than any other league.
So that's funny, actually, because my next question was everyone's thoughts on the 3-on-3. Obviously, we're 0-2 so far in
I
overtime.
love it.
How's everybody
I love
feeling
it.
about 3-on-3? And how do we get better since we are 0-2 in it?
I mean, as Dubnyk was saying, and this is strange to think about with the 3-on-3, but go back to that St. Louis game. Everybody talks about the shift that Niederreiter and Howe and Suter got pinned in their own zone. Dubnyk was saying, that's fine. If we've got 3 tired guys in our own zone, I'm okay once they're in the zone. It's so much harder to get a scoring chance when they're in the zone. What I worry about is the rush. So that's the goalie's perspective. But as far as the 3-on-3, the goal was not eliminating shootouts, but cutting back on shootouts, and it has done exactly that.
Yep.
And so I have
And it's
no
so
complaints.
fun to watch, I think.
I think it's great.
Let me ask you this, Sarah. Do you like the shootout?
No, not particularly.
And so I like the shootout.
You do?
But and the reason
In a way of deciding wins and losses?
yes,
skills competition.
And the reason I like the shootout, just the skill aspect of it.
It's fun to watch.
Yes, it's fun to watch.
It shouldn't
It's
be
fun to watch if you have Patrick Kane or
It
Zach
shouldn't-
Parise.
it shouldn't be a- it
It's not
shouldn't be
fun
a-
to watch if you're the Devils.
It should be a point determiner, though.
or Jason Pominville because he scores in the shootout.
Or see Mikko Koivu do his backhand move 1,000 times.
Yeah.
By the way, that's
but
a sick move.
Beyond that, I don't want to spend upwards of $200, $300, $400 and then have it finish in a tie. Like, it's unreasonable. That's why my partner, right? His name is Zachary.
He's talking about work, not life partner. I just want to clarify.
Well, but it's the same thing, kind of. You know what I mean?
Okay,
we're-
fair enough.
We spend more time together than my wife and I do.
Fair enough.
Which makes it awkward. His name is Zachary Juttinen, right? And he's a soccer guy, and he loves soccer. And I told him I can't do it because
Seriously, shut up.
I need a winner. I need a winner. And so now that we're gonna have a soccer stadium in St. Paul, in where I grew up, the Midway area, he is fired
Ecstatic.
up. So my question is, should a game that fans spend money, should you not have satisfaction? You should have a win or you should have a loss. You should have.
That's the American way of thinking.
Yes.
Soccer, I mean, and the American way of thinking is all about the stats.
the hell cares?
well played.
nice,
well played.
nice.
Jerks. What a bunch of jerks.
Hey, we gotta do a couple quick things here, and then we gotta put a bow on this. This has been 90 minutes of pure gold, by the way, and I hope that you will come back.
Absolutely.
When you get Chad Graff in the building, you go 90 minutes strong.
Well, so Chad,
And any
I'm
of you
not
that
sure.
have stopped listening, to hell with you. You
You
missed
can't
out.
hear this part anyway.
We're still getting tons of tweets. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get time to get to them all, but I promise that we will tweet you back and tweet next weekend. And we're really excited to have you listening live and asking questions. If you don't know a ton about Alive and Social Network that we're so lucky to be on, they have a ton of different types of shows. We've got the Wild Wednesday show, the Sports Ticket with Kevin Gorg and Kendall Mark that they do each
The
week.
Twin Cities Hit Show.
So we got plenty of sports shows, but
Amazing.
the cool thing is they do a lot of different types of podcasts as well. Some stuff they do down at their studio, some stuff is live out at bars. I have to apologize because Story North, I misspeak on. I think it was like 3 weeks in a row, but I've gotten clarification. It's in the studio, and they're just going to talk about anything kind of in the books, anything kind of like a media style. They do, and I know I keep talking about this, but books at bars that I need to get more information about because that's personally what's going to interest me.
Story North and Books at Bars, two different things.
I know, but I
Both
want to know
great.
about the Books and Bars. But Books and Bars is from the the host of Story North.
I swear to God, the lady that came out of the bathroom just was wearing a blanket.
It
was a poncho.
That is so funny that you said that, because
Okay.
I missed the whole North Books thing. I was a little distracted by the poncho.
You guys,
It was
it's not a
multicolored.
poncho. It's a blanket scarf, and
a
it's
blanket.
the greatest creation of all time. I will wear mine next Wednesday.
I want to go offer like
Chad,
a margarita.
Maybe
I'll
I'll
send
have
you
to
a
bring mine.
Snapchat.
Nachos.
Okay.
Blanket scarf.
Blanket scarf is the greatest thing that happened to fashion this season.
okay.
The only reason I'm not wearing mine today is because it was 70 degrees.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also The Last Gentleman, I'm going to give them a shout out too. It's a couple of comedians, and so it's going to be on Sundays. They talk about anything that's going on in current events. History, sex, drugs, politics, religion. This actually sounds like maybe we could go on there and spice it up a little bit.
We could say
But-
all the bad words that we say on ours, probably.
Yeah, but we're really
While
grateful
drinking
to Alive and
lowballs
Social.
of liquor.
I'm in.
Very grateful to Bennett's for having us back. I'm excited. Are you going to stick around and have a little dinner? We'll get you something to go,
Sure,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, but let's have
Really,
some
really
dinner.
good.
They have the best food. I had their pork chops last week. Phenomenal. Had kind of like a sweet brown sugar applesauce on top.
Game
Nice.
night, $20 sirloin. They have it smothered in onions and mushrooms. My wife loves the au gratin potatoes. They have the fries here with the campfire sauce. It's just unbelievable. I would challenge you to find a better steak, to find a more welcoming atmosphere on West 7th Street. If you've never been here, I challenge you to come here, eat the food. Tell me it's not just a phenomenal.
It is.
And
It's
I'll say
phenomenal.
breakfast, too. I mean, it's actually
Really?
it's a
Interesting.
breakfast. They
I
have
see the coffee mugs on the wall.
They have a little Charlie Benedict where they actually have their little steak medallions as part of their Eggs Benedict. It is ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
That
I mean, you
amazing.
better prep for a nap afterwards because you're going to sleep for sure.
That's my favorite kind of brunch, like a bloody something
Yeah.
that's like delicious.
And
And
their
it's gonna
Bloody
take me to
Mary
nap.
has like a prawn in it. It's not a shrimp, it's a prawn
Yum.
with some
I love
cheese and
that.
some other stuff. So it's like a little meal in of itself. But
The,
yeah.
the best kind of brunch is when you need a nap after. It wasn't a real brunch if you can stay
Absolutely.
awake
No.
after.
And you have like a
Absolutely.
mild buzz.
Right.
yeah, like I
The
said,
best part about
When
Sunday.
you wake up from your nap a little bit hungover,
Yes.
that's when you know you did brunch right.
Exactly. Totally.
well, you have a buzz and then you need to take a nap. That's key.
So, Chad, where do we find you? Obviously, you're the beat writer for the Pioneer Press.
Beat writer for the Pioneer Press. You can find me at twincities.com. You can find me in the actual paper. I don't know how many people still know what the actual paper is, but the actual paper. Here
What's your Twitter? At Chad Graff?
Chad Graff, yeah, 2 F's in Graff. And a few other places, but those are always to be determined.
What a really good opportunity to have a chance to have Chad Graff on the show and then have you mix into the conversation and just have it be like seamless. Like, thank you for coming on.
No,
It was so
this
fun.
has been awesome, and I really sincerely hope that you come again.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
We'd love to have you on a regular basis. This was awesome.
I try to explain what the show is, and it's barroom conversation about hockey from passionate people. And then also Sarah's here to keep us in line because we are jerks. Myself, I obviously am a jerk. Lord Schweitz can get off of the rails sometimes, and Sarah holds us
It
accountable.
takes a special kind of Canadian to spend as much time with these two as I do.
No doubt.
They're friendly, kind people.
and so I hope that translated to your experience because the evolution of it is that we have these mainstream like media conglomerates here, right?
Can I say really quickly that my
Vocabulary
mom's
word.
calling me and I'm concerned it's about swearing at my grandma?
Is it?
Anyways, go
yes,
on.
yes, that happened. You have to own that.
It might be. I'll call her back later.
And so, what a podcast
by the way,
is,
we'll tweet that out later.
what a podcast is, what a blogger is, what the evolution of media is. I think it's great that you come here because you're a beat writer.
Right,
You have access. I mean, you're important in the grand scheme of things. And
I'm
then
not important. I promise you that.
I promise you
Try
are.
telling Scott that. His answer isn't the
I'll
same as yours.
convince you later. We'll have a few more beers and I'll
I meant that
convince you.
he's not important.
He's got great taste in shirt color too.
Both rocking that teal today.
Identical
Wait till you guys see my blanket scarf next week, okay?
blanket scarf.
I won't be matching that.
Really quickly before we go, let's do a quick preview. We got 3 tough home games. What do we think? What are we coming up? I want predictions.
Nashville, Tampa Bay, and Winnipeg. I mean, you got
Tampa
Shea
Bay.
Weber coming back to town with I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I think the Wild always play well against the Predator. Like, there are just some teams that teams play well against. Like, the Wild in a couple weeks are going to Dallas. They never play well in Dallas. They do play well against Nashville. It's crazy.
It's crazy. The stats are nuts.
Like, when I first got this job, someone said that to me. I was like, no, that's the dumbest thing I've heard. That's not true. And then I've actually gone to Dallas and seen the games. Like, oh, it's totally true. They don't play well in Dallas.
Yeah, it's bad.
So they do play well against Nashville, so I'm excited to see that game. 2 top Central Division teams. Tampa, obviously exciting for so many reasons. And then
we
Winnipeg.
played quite well against Tampa Bay last year. I mean, that was one of our better games earlier in the season where I think we took it to them like 7-2 or something like that. I mean,
it was a blowout.
Really,
I remember
really
that.
blew them out nice. And then Winnipeg
Can
always
I just say that you
always
just said blew them out nice? I'm just going to have
Yes!
to point that out.
No, we're going to let that slide.
Yes!
I was fully prepared to just have a sip of beer and let that go.
Passionate.
You just entered that into the drinking game.
Exactly.
Passionate.
I mean, if you're going to blow them out, you
sorry.
better blow them out nice. Is that what I'm saying?
passionate.
You can go on, Scott. Sorry,
And
I don't even know what the hell you were
should buy
talking
them
about.
dinner.
You
You
blow
should
'em
buy
out.
them dinner if
blow 'em out
you're
rough?
going to blow them out nice.
My
They
mom's
better-
going to yell at me about
They better
this
buy
too.
you dinner. I want them to buy
In
me
trouble.
dinner.
In trouble.
In trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. But then Winnipeg coming to town.
That was a tough
always,
game.
Always physical. Always.
Always a fun atmosphere at the X. I know you go to a lot of games, so you got to see it too.
Oh, you
It's-
get the Winnipeg idiots coming
So
down.
many
I
of their
swear to
fans
God, I
come
mean,
down.
they're honestly. The funny thing is if you've been a Wild fan long enough, the Winnipeg fans were Wild fans up until they got their team back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those would be the idiots that would come down, and honest to God, you could see them if you walked into the bar because they'd buy all the shit online, like the old North Star shit and like the
Yeah.
breezers and the helmets. And I love those people. I love them. I'm walking like you're from Canada, aren't you? I can just tell you're from Canada because you have breezers on in the bar. I love that.
Day one insight. That's day
That's
one
good.
of the
That's
Wild
good.
insight.
I will tell you that is how you can tell somebody's a Canadian fan. I'm like, okay, it in the playoffs, like you are not a normal fan.
And,
I
and
get
the best thing about that is there's
I like
a,
to see that
there's a
type of
Winnipeg-
Canadian.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
There's a Winnipeg-Minnesota rivalry, but Manitobans and Minnesotans are just so nice that, like, at the bar after the game, like, they'll get into each other at the game, then at the bar
yeah,
after,
yeah,
we'll get you a
you'll
couple
share-
beers.
you'll share some drinks,
It's,
for sure.
it's my favorite rivalry.
But
Yeah,
I hate,
cheers.
I hate the Go Jets Go chant. I hate
Yeah, that
that. I
pisses
mean,
me
it
off,
just gets too much.
Can I share that? Not only is that top level like day one of the franchise insight, but that's like West 7th Lord Schweitz royalty to like be out there and be like, what do you got breezers at the bar, you fucking jerks, right?
No, I
would
wasn't
say-
jerks. I was like, look at you guys. Like you guys are just like drunk rubes. I mean, you love
yeah.
this shit. Like
Slapshot. You're
like,
thinking like new edition Slapshot. You're like you're the goons.
I mean, I like them. I
I
saw
mean,
them
they're
like,
driving down with like
Exactly right.
4 cases of the Labatt in the car, drink on the way.
Yes.
Well, they were totally
went up.
tuned up by
It
the
went
time
up.
they got here.
The other thing from like a business perspective, the thing I love about Winnipeg fans is they fight each other and then they don't need any service.
Yeah,
Like-
no, that's totally true. I feel like
like-
it's like when the Brewers come to the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the same type of thing. You just watch the Brewers fans like get super drunk and then they end up fighting each other by the end of it all.
And then we show up there
Sit
and
idly
we're
by
like,
and be like, "What are you doing?"
we're like, what happened here? And they're like, we've worked it out. We love each other, and
Eh?
then it's like hugging. And then I'm like, I'm gonna go and do other stuff.
That
then
is great.
That
That's-
sounds like every fight I've
it's
ever gone in. What's
outstanding.
wrong with that?
Yes,
People-
no,
That's the Canadian way, my
Canadian.
friend.
They got black eyes and blood on their shirt. They're like, we're all good.
And
They're all
hugging.
like,
Yeah.
they're all hugging
Cheers.
each other and like everything's
each
fine
other.
here.
Let's take a shot of maple syrup.
Oh, that's
All right.
terrific.
On that
they're
note,
making a two. They're making a two. Eric Stolhansky, Minnesota native. They funded a second movie, Super Troopers 2. I'm so fired
With
up
some
about it.
and
donations
he's
from
a
Wild
huge
players.
Wild fan. He's a
Yes.
huge Wild fan, and he's really good friends with a couple of the Wild players and stuff. I've heard him on K-Fan. That should be. I wish that they almost wish they weren't filming that right now, so that we could make that like our goal in life to get him on the show. We have to start dropping some lines with people or something.
I mean,
We could get him on at some point.
yeah, we
Okay,
can find them.
that's
no
officially our goal in life. Okay.
You'll do
Let's-
that by the end of the season. That's my prediction for the Wild
All
this
right.
season. is that you guys will get Stolhansky.
All right,
like it.
I
I
love
like
it.
it.
doubt. You have to
And
promise,
that'll be a special guest.
You'll come on too that week.
you have to promise that you'll come back and see us because outstanding. Like we
You guys give
appreciate
out
you.
free beer. I'm always in for
All
free
day.
beer.
All right.
I like that.
all day.
Well, thank you so much to Alive and Social. Thank you so much to Bennett's. Thank you so much to Chad Graff, to our resident guest host here, Tony
jerk.
Dean.
What a jerk! What a jerk that guy is on Twitter in real life. Just
He
every
never shuts the
aspect.
F up, we know, but we love him.
Blow the whistle.
And we got to go because I'm starving, you guys. It's time to order up some really good
She's
food.
not going to yoga tonight.
I'm not going. I might even cheat on my challenge. I think there might be carbs in my future,
Chardonnay
guys.
in the future.
All
right, we'll see you next week, everybody.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Aaron is handsome.
Oh, Aaron, you haven't got your shout out yet. You're so cute. Coming to Snapchat. Check it out. Wild Wednesdays.
He's going to be dating Kendall's sister soon.
Kendall's sister. Proud of you.
No, you don't want nada. None of this. Six gunning this, brother running this. Buffalo soldier. Look, it's like I told you. Any damsel that's in distress.